We're live.
We're doing it again. We are back in studio.
We're here with the baby.
With Jonah. Hold him up so everybody can see him. Oh, I got to mute this. This happened last time. Hold on. There we go.
I feel like
Okay.
if you've ever seen, if you're a white woman, you have, or a gay man, you've seen Sweet Home Alabama
Yeah.
with the early 2000s classic with
Reese Witherspoon.
yeah. Oh, wow. Look at you. Deep dive. And there's that scene where she's like, you have a baby in a bar. That's how I feel is like the equivalent. It's like, you have a baby on a podcast. He's officially had more podcasts appearances than I did all through my 20s.
There you go, dude. We're prepping him for show business.
So
Actually, not. I would prefer if he's not a show. Well, I just want him to do whatever he wants to do, but we're not going to make him a child actor unless.
no. My mom the other day was like, have you thought about getting him an agent?
Yeah.
I know I'm biased, honey, but he's beautiful. He's beautiful.
Well, real quick, I'm Alex Gettlin.
I'm Rachel LaForce.
And this is Common Ground Morning Show. We do this live every morning, 10 a.m. PST. If you don't
Only Monday mornings. You say every
Monday.
morning. And people are going to
No.
fall in love, and then they're going to be angry that we're not here, Tuesday through Sunday.
Every Monday morning, PST. Follow us on Common Ground Morning Show on Facebook if you want to chime in live. We are comedians. We are married to each other, and this is our show. We find common ground every Monday morning, right? At
Well,
least-
hopefully.
yeah. We'll
Not
see.
always.
And Jonah's here for the third week in a row, and hopefully, he's been in a good spirit so far. We'll see how it holds up. But speaking of Jonah and podcasts, we recently, aside from doing our own podcast, one of our favorite things to do is go on someone else's podcast. If it's a good one. Some of them aren't good. But
Sure.
we did do a great podcast
We did.
last Tuesday.
Yes.
Shout out to the guys from Please Remain Calm, Danny and Ben Gonzalez, two brothers. See, they're a family podcast too.
That's true. And I did not know that they were brothers, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Gonzalez is a pretty common last name.
Very common last name. So it's
Yeah.
like, certainly, these two men makes total sense
You know
that
what's
they
so
have the
funny
same last
too
name.
is I know you, and I know in your head you're like, well, I don't want to assume that they're related because they both look similar and they have the same last
But
name.
it honestly never even crossed my mind.
Really?
Like, not at all. But I think I was just in a different headspace. But
Yeah.
like when I left, I was like, oh, wow, writing on the wall. There we go. Missed it. But it was
That's
so
so
wonderful.
funny.
So both of them are EMTs.
No, not quite. I think Ben was an EMT and now works for the LA County Health Department.
Oh, yes, they said that.
Danny's fire department.
Yeah.
But they both are first responders.
There we go.
and
yeah.
they have EMT training.
Correct.
And they've had a lot of experiences in that world. And I thought you were going to pick it up from there. So
I thought there was like another plug I needed. I was like, I
No,
don't
no,
know.
no.
What did I forget about them?
So they have great stories and interviews about being a first responder and
So-
people who've had emergencies.
Right. So that's what they do is they interview people about, close calls and, all that stuff. So we talked about Jonah's birth.
Mm-hmm.
And that was wild. But it was cool because, and this is just a fun, go listen to the podcast. Go and support their podcast. Download it. It's in all of the places. Really, really interesting stuff.
Please remain calm. Just look up Please Remain Calm. And I'll put a link in the description. So if you're listening on Spotify or Audible, basically if you're listening on any audio platform other than Apple, you can just click the link I have there. For some reason, Apple doesn't let us put the link in there. I don't know. They're weird about that.
Restrictions.
Yeah. But yeah, Please Remain Calm is the podcast. And I obviously I was there, so I know the story. And I've heard you talk about it, but I think that was the best, like the best way that you told it, where it was like funny throughout. They did a great job kind of like just keeping the ball in the air.
Well, I've told it a couple times. That's why before we started, I said, do you guys run at a tight 60 minutes? Because if they did, then I was like, okay, now I've learned how to like trim the fat
Mm-hmm.
on this story because I've told it a couple of times. And mostly I've told it because I think that we need to hear it. I think we need to hear more stories of like what really, I'm not like, I had a beautiful home birth in a bath and I saw Jesus and it was beautiful and they put him in my arms and I knew I was at peace. Like,
You're really big on normalizing things that haven't been normalized, which is great. I think it's a good thing.
yeah, because that's why we're all walking around like sad and feeling traumatized because we're like, why was my experience not what I was told it was going to be? And it's like,
right.
yeah, because everybody's been lying to you. I
that's
almost
just-
said dog, but I didn't.
Yeah, you have been saying dog a lot. You're
And-
on this Randy Jackson thing.
Apparently.
That's our son in the background, if you can hear. So
He's
yeah,
fine.
per usual, Jonah's kind of having his thing. We might pass him back and forth. But yeah, so that was. Just wanted to give a shout out to those guys. And it's interesting because it's always doing podcasting. is kind of like doing stand. This is a little inside baseball, but some people might understand it. So, you and I have produced shows, live comedy shows before, and it's a lot of fun. And we're going to do more in the future, but it's also really nice to just show up at a show and be someone's talent, right?
So nice.
So doing someone else's podcast when we just like show up and we don't have to, like, I'm running the sound, you're keeping our son occupied, we're making sure the cameras are, like, we just go. They have this great studio from this guy Mark that
Shout out to Mastermind Media. Yeah, check out Mark and Mastermind.
Yeah, if you're in the LA area and you're interested in kind of getting into the podcasting media space, seems like he has a great setup. But it's just like, it's nice. I always remember that when I go to somebody else's show and they do it properly and I can just sit down and I don't have to think about the tech.
Well, that's probably why you're like, your story was so good. I'm like, yeah, because my brain wasn't split in 4 different directions,
Right.
being like, is this all working? I was like, cool, all I have to do is tell a story. This is awesome.
And you did great.
Thanks.
You did a great job.
Everybody else will know when they go and download and listen to that episode.
Yeah.
It was fun. And I will say this, though, for anybody, if you're listening and either pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, etc., something that I thought was interesting that Danny offered, I believe, which was if you are having a home birth, it might be useful to call your local fire department. So God forbid if you and or your baby do need to be rushed to the hospital, they're already kind of got an eye on like, okay, here's your address. We knew we might hear from you. And I thought that was a really good tip just because, there's a lot of beautiful ways to give birth. And I totally understand why people would want to do that. But I think in doing that is also the same as anything of like, prepare for all the situations. And I just thought that was a really good tip.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I could see some people, and this is, you would have a better answer because I would just like roll my eyes at these folks, but it's like, I don't want to put out bad energy. If you call them, then you're setting yourself up to already have a disaster. But because those folks that have that mindset.
Yeah, but I think that's the same people that are like, I'm manifesting like more money so like I can spend the money I have because I know it's going to come back to me. It's like, no, that's like poor money management. That's what that is. You know what I mean? Like if you don't know where your money's coming from, like don't spend your money. So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Sure.
I feel like I'm very spiritual, but I'm also like, dude, we live on planet Earth for a reason. So like, they're just kind of rules we got to operate within. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think you really do a good job of walking that line of in the spirit world and in reality, because some people are they just go too deep into that.
They go full ham.
They go
into
full
the spirit
woo-woo,
world.
you got to go one woo. You can't go two woo-woo,
Yep. That's funny.
All right. Anyway.
What are we talking about this week?
Well, that was the first part.
Okay. Well, nailed it.
Did you want to talk about the Chappelle special? We both watched it. I know it's kind of, at this point, the news has moved on,
Everybody's moved on. And I know they're thinking, I need to know this white woman's hot take on the Chappelle
You
special.
almost said Shishelle.
Shishelle, up and coming. I thought it was fine. I don't know why. I mean, I guess I understand why the internet lost its mind. I understand the feedback. I just feel like at this point, anybody who is doing work on a large scale, if you're not ultimately supporting outright every single thing that everyone has decided is their cause, then you are cause for cancellation.
Right.
And I also feel like that people weren't properly hearing him. I definitely understood that, where he was like, if you are thinking that I am anti this or anti that, you are not listening.
Right.
Which was the funniest part. He was like, because the only people I've ever been going after is white people.
I know, that is pretty funny.
And that was so funny and also so real.
Yeah. Well, he had a great bit in one of the specials where he talked about how like people only started really caring on a mainstream level about transgender women when a white man, Bruce Jenner, became Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Because there were like some iconic like black people who had done it and it didn't take off. I just thought it was
of course not.
Yeah. And it was sort of, I thought it was very clever, but it was just interesting. I mean, Chappelle to me is still one of the greatest of all time.
I mean, that's like, dude, or sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
This wasn't my favorite of his like Netflix specials. My favorite was the one he did that was in the belly room. People don't know, it's like this very intimate room at the Comedy Store. But that might have been my favorite because as a comic, it was sort of like a B-sides type thing. But I thought that was my favorite. But This felt like it was the perfect amount of comedy, and it wasn't like a serious talk, but I felt he was definitely like pontificating a lot more. Like a Bill Burr special is just like straight killer jokes and anecdotes. There isn't so much of a message in there for the most part.
Yeah.
I feel like Chappelle did a great job being like, God, we all gotta chill out, and like, but it wasn't in a preachy way. It was like in a just let's start using common sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would actually even argue that I feel like there is a message in Bill Burr's. He's just not coming out and being like, here's what I think about the world. But I feel like if you're really listening, but he also gets so much flack when people are like, he hates women, and it's just like.
I know that's not true because you're a woman who's very big on like treating women fair and with respect and giving them the voice and stuff, and you love Bill Burr.
Well, because I feel like now if there's any criticism of any quote unquote minority group, then it's like hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a very dangerous territory.
Yeah.
And I also feel like, especially as a parent, like it's not our job to walk around and go, oh, you didn't like what that person says. You should tell everyone. Like we have a nation of tattletellers.
Yep.
Now, like everyone's like, I'm going to tattle. Like we don't like you.
They've done a lot of psychology experiments about this, or psychological experiments, I guess, whatever the phrasing is. And because they've studied when people were like ratting on each other during the Red Scare and communist times and under Nazi Germany, and it's a power thing. It gives people a sense of power. And
well, I don't think it's that. I think it's security. I think in times of a lot of like tumultuous situations, which has been from 2016 to now, certainly there's no security.
Yeah.
There's no job security.
Right.
There's no health security. Like everything has been in question.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can find something to stand on because we're being like, well, we're okay, but look at this person.
Yeah.
And again, I do think that there are a lot of people that are calling for, kind of rehabilitation, not cancellation, which I think is really important because, it's also just because you have like. One of the things I love the most that Chappelle said, which was we need to be better at honoring each other's human experiences, which is like the bulk of all Mama's work. Okay,
that's all you're about.
That's all I'm about. Of like, I just got goosebumps.
Do you want to talk about your thing you're working on, or you want to wait for the live show?
I talked about it briefly last week. I'm working on bringing into fruition a show called the Misfit Light, and it's basically mapping like church over comedy.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is like the whole idea is creating community. I feel like right now the comedy community doesn't really have like, the mic still isn't going on at the store. And like, there's just, a lot of comedy places have shut down and like, we're just all kind of still getting our bearings back. Like what the fuck just happened?
Sure.
And I want to create a space where people can come and like, see their buddies and like, see a really good headliner, but have a place to genuinely like connect and be like, all right, we're okay. Like we made it.
Yeah. Well, to me, it sounds like you're putting it together like the perfect amount of amalgamation of like live talk show with stand-up show.
Yeah. So what I also want to do is, it's the idea of like creating community through comedy, one misfit at a time is the tagline. So, Los Angeles loves to post on their Instagram about things that you should be doing. And I know half y'all motherfuckers aren't doing this. You know what I mean? Because if everybody that said they were calling their senators were really calling their senators, we would actually be seeing change. You know what I mean?
For sure, dude.
So what I want to do is, and for myself too,
I feel like if we could text our senators to make a difference, it would be way more effective.
That's hilarious. Can I send him a voice memo? Hey, it's Rach.
God, what kind of Ted Cruz voice memo would you send him? I know you're not in his district, so it doesn't matter, but like,
I don't know. Probably just like the theme for Sesame Street. Be like, are you listening now? Ted, it's Rach. So what I want to do also for myself is reaching out to more like small community members and things like that are working grassroots to change some things nationally.
When you say small community members, you mean people who are making a difference in the community on a micro level.
Correct.
Yeah.
So obviously, every once in a while, as I kind of dig more and more into this, I can find different like national organizations and things like that.
Sure.
But the idea is more specifically for creating community within Los Angeles. That really is the idea. So that's what I'm working on. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
But then I also still want it to be really funny because I know people, and I'm starting to feel it too, and which is weird because it's literally the opposite of my work, which is I think everything has been so serious that people are feeling that of like, I don't need everything to have, like some hard meaning, but I'm also like, yeah, but I also think we do because like we keep like banging our head in the wall and being like, why is it the same? And it's like, because we're not doing anything different. That's why this is our bed that we sleep in. So I want to strike the difference. I want to still have like the best talent.
Strike the difference. That's a good name for something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Strike the difference sounds like a 2000s like punk rock band.
Yeah.
Like Panic at the Disco.
Strike up the difference. Strike up the difference.
No, more like
okay.
like,
Well, I went full ham on that one.
I could see Strike the Difference. They would sound kind of like Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco.
Yeah.
Like,
All the
Nope, that's Blink. But okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Clearly. I mean,
So
even,
Chappelle.
that was it. I think it was great. The thing that I thought was funny, and this is how it always is now, is like, he talks about transgender people, not even disparagingly. He just talks about
Also,
them.
I feel like he spent a lot of time talking about the trans. Like, if he really didn't care for the trans community, that's like 3 specials.
Well, but he was
on a national platform. I mean, if you think about that was the thing where he's like, I'm done talking about this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a little tired of hearing like your jokes and opinions on like the trans community.
For sure. But the funniest thing was just that like, so a bunch of Netflix employees did like a walkout.
Yeah.
It was like 20 people, and there were like 100 photogs that were there at their like walk. Like there were more paparazzi there than people doing the thing, which is like the world that we've created now. Like, so this kind of like went and came pretty fast because it was a flop. But there was all this buildup a little while ago. There was going to be some, I think this was in September or August, in D.C. in front of the Capitol. There was like a January 6th protest, like people who were supposed to organize, like, we're standing up in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who were arrested on January 6th. And the corporate media was going nuts about like, oh, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be crazy. And it was like 30 people. And then like it was just a ton of news, paparazzi, and police. And it was like 30 guys, half of which were probably undercover cops.
Such a waste of money.
Yeah. Right? I mean, what are we doing?
Especially a waste of time. I feel like now as a new parent who's literally having to do this podcast while holding my son because resources are limited and time is too. Like, I just couldn't imagine. I can't care about shit that's not important anymore. I can't care about things where it's like, oh, we're going to make this a really big deal. Like, no, we're not. No, we're not. Because I feel like ultimately we all know the difference between an actual threat and bullshit. We all know the actual difference.
That, but I think people have gone crazy. I think this is what, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this idea from Crystal and Sagar from Breaking Points, which again,
shout out, guys. We want to come on your podcast. We cannot wait.
Well, they don't really have guests like us, but it would be an honor if they ever had us on.
I mean, I'm just saying, manifest the impossible, Gettlin.
But if that's true, Sagar's a huge comedy fan. He posts about he's gone and seen like Andrew Schultz live, Rogan live. Sagar and Crystal, if you guys ever want to,
they could come on our podcast.
It would be an honor. Yeah, that's a goal to get big enough where it's worth their time to come on our show. Anyway, I would love to do a live show with them and like interview them about the media.
That'd be fun.
My point is though that they do a really great job about talking about the disconnect of like corporate media and the news that they cover and how it doesn't relate to what like actual people really care about in this country. Like right now, and I only know about this from them, which is why I'm so grateful that they cover these stories. They're doing all these incredible stories about these labor strikes happening at places like the Kellogg's factory, the John Deere factory, IATSE, which is the like production union of Hollywood. And all these like labor movements that are coming together, people who don't give a shit about who voted for who, their race background, all they care about is like, are you on the workforce and do you feel like you're getting treated like shit and you need better treatment and wages through all this? And it's them fighting against like, their corporate bosses. And mainstream is like doing nothing to cover it. The only people going on about it are like fringe news outlets, or like independent is a better word, people that I like, and these guys. And it's just very telling to me that corporate media seems to be fascinated when it's like Republican, Democrat, left, right, Trump versus non-Trump people. But the minute all that goes away and it's workforce versus corporate force, somehow they go radio silent.
Well, because that's not who's paying their bills.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing where it's like, of course they care about left and right. That's where all of their money is coming in. But I will also say, to me, mainstream media in that way, the reason it's gotten so insane, the reason it's gotten so loud is before anything knows it's dying,
Yeah.
it's going to get louder and louder.
Interesting. That's a
Like,
good point.
like if I speak to like my own fear right now, so like I'm going after a lot of things, I'm conquering a lot of fear, right? And it gets so loud. Like when you really do shit that scares you, and it doesn't have to be like,
What are you
you
scared
know,
of, LaForce? Snakes?
just I am I've been going and hanging out with snakes. Could you imagine?
You have that, to me, snakes in the dark are your two most ridiculous fears.
Oh, and snakes in the dark. Oh, shoot me. So scary.
Imagine falling into a pit
Stop.
of snakes in the dark.
I can't. Oh, I hate
Well,
it.
what's your like tangible fears that relate to everyday life?
Just all the stuff I've been working on.
Yeah.
You know, we've had 2 years of like building and putting work together. And now it's like, all right, dude, well, it's time to go like have people see your stuff and make your stuff.
And what if they don't like you?
That's the thing. What if they don't like you? But also at the same time, I feel like, you know, the more bullets you take, then the more you're just like, all right. And also the quicker that you go through things, you'll find the people who do like your stuff, who do like you, right? But anyway, the point being that, you know, when you're really going after the things that scare you or things that are trying to die off. So like specifically if you're talking about fear or, you know, let's say you finally broke up with somebody that you knew that you needed to, right? And then maybe they're still calling you or whatever. And the voices inside your head get louder and louder because it's like, oh, what if I walk away and they really were the one? Like I should call them back. Like all of those doubts and all of that fear and all that shit that kept you small gets louder and louder and louder. Because that's just our human psyche. That's the way it goes. So I see that on a collective level with our media, like loud and clear. Like to me, it's so transparent that I'm like, ugh, it's almost like comical to me at this point.
Sure.
Because, and I'll tell you what, like even, you know, I'm like really dusting myself off for stand up and like getting back out there again. And, you know, I talk a lot about, you know, and I asked the audience like straight up last night. I was like, are we okay?
Right.
And everyone stared at me and I go, no, I'm actually asking, are we okay? Because shit is wild out there, you know? And I feel like for the most part, like everybody does want to be happy and they do want to move on. And like, you know, to me, it's like, you really want to have a gauge on what America's like. Ask a comic, ask a touring comic.
Yeah.
Like what's really going on out there?
Well, it's funny you say that because so back when I was saying everybody's afraid of stuff, we were talking about something about fear and irrational thinking. And Bill Maher is a pretty left-leaning liberal comic, was talking about how like when he goes to red states where their COVID restrictions are super lax, packed shows, everybody's having a good time. But he's saying in these blue cities, a lot of tight buttholes. People aren't relaxing in you know, a lot of more like harder to sell tickets. People don't feel safe going out still.
And they don't feel as safe laughing.
Right.
I mean, people.
They've convinced themselves that the red states are like killing people in droves, which is not happening. But there's no information that they're willing to hear. They're just like, no, they're killing. They're killing people. Jonah's really having a lot of opinions on this one this morning. As you can see, you know, guys, it's a family affair over here.
I agree, and I think like, you know, even just kind of talking about and figuring out. Oh God,
maybe the bottle.
We gotta pause. We're losing our mind.
Here, you deal with him. I'll do a little vamping real quick. So, guys, anyway, what I think is happening, what Bill's going on about, we were kind of talking about for a second, is that, you know, I think part of it is really we are a product of our own bubbles. And I think a big part of it in these blue areas, you know, a lot of people who dictate the narrative, those are also the hubs of a lot of corporate media, a lot of Hollywood, a lot of Silicon Valley, a lot of jobs where it's you can work from home or stay in your office and you don't have to be out like in the labor force in the same way. So I think people have been very insulated. And through that, it's made them feel like, well, I'm safe because of the choices that we made in this city, so this must be right. And they just can't allow themselves to think that, you know, people in a state like Texas or Florida or somewhere else where they're way more lax on COVID stuff and people aren't, they're just, I don't know. I've tried to talk to these folks and they just do not believe that that's a possibility.
I don't know, or I won't speak to that. Here's what I've observed is I feel like because the woke left is so far left, that folks like you and I,
I used to think of myself as someone on the left,
or people that I would assume that I think are just like level-headed, that are open-minded, that want progress, that are well educated as to what's really going on, you know, things like that. I I think they're readjusting to what they feel comfortable laughing at.
Yeah,
Because I think
that's a big part
because
of
I
it.
think it has changed.
Yeah.
I think it has, but not everybody is like super super far left. So I think people are still adjusting. Like, again, even last night, like I could see because there's a line where I'm like, I don't think it's that we're so divided. I think that social media made it too easy for us to not like each other,
Mm-hmm.
and like people, like I could tell, like responded, and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like let's break this down, and then so I knew that like people are there, like they're with you, but I think they're still
You
figuring
know,
out.
oh,
But the other thing is like for better or worse, like Trump thumping people don't give a fuck,
yeah.
and which is not
There,
great.
but there is
But
something,
listen, which is not great for a lot of things, right? Progress,
right?
truly understanding the damage of microaggressions, things like
Yeah.
that, right? But when it comes to comedy, great time. You want to know why? Because they'll laugh at anything. They're like their world is much smaller, and I
Yeah.
think, especially in California, especially like very very woke left, it's like, well, we're like, if we laugh, then we're laughing at everyone. So, like, we're not going to laugh because we're letting you know that that's not okay and it's not okay for everyone. And it's like, dude, I'm up here for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I
I
got
mean,
$25 and like a free drink ticket to be here,
Yeah, it isn't to massively generalize. It does seem that like the main difference between like the hardcore Trump people and the hardcore woke people is the hardcore woke people have this mindset of like, this is the truth, and if you don't buy in, if you don't follow my rules, not only am I going to try and like, I don't want anything to do with you, but I'm going to try and take away your livelihood and ruin your life.
Yeah.
The Trump people are kind of like, this is my truth, and if you don't like it, fuck off. And but they don't have this urge to like go after people for the most part that don't buy into their reality. And I don't know where that comes from, and it could be because they don't have the means to, or because they're on the back ropes now, or
Well, I think specifically for poor whites that are Trump people, they don't give a fuck because no one's ever given a fuck about them.
well, that's why he was able to take power.
No, I know, and there's obviously a ton of things that are problematic about that. Please hear me when I say that. But I think a lot of that mentality does come from that because they've kind of been forgotten. So it's like, why would they care? But I also think that like both sides, like very polarized sides, have a lot to learn from each other. And I also think they're a lot more similar.
Yeah, they are. And that's back to my point with the labor strikes, is it's interesting that corporate media won't cover it because it is like very lefty blue collar people and very Trumpy conservative blue collar people being like, look, man, we need to like unite to get better wages, fair treatment. What's interesting about that too, real quick, like an example of how fucked this is. So it was either Kellogg's or John Deere, one of those companies. Their whole like warehouse staff went on strike. And so the executive level decided that they were going to take a bunch of people from like the office suites, various like accountants, people who don't work in the warehouse, and just quote unquote train them up to do the warehouse job. First day, somebody had to go to the hospital because there was an accident with a forklift, which is not funny, but there is like poetic justice that it's like, you moron, like these idiots were like, it's a warehouse, like how, of course any dummy can do it. And that's another thing too that I found that's really frustrating is there's this very misconstrued mindset in this country, and it was kind of, I think, beaten into our heads in the 90s when we were kids, that a lot of people who go to a 4-year college have this mindset being like, oh, because I have a degree, I'm a smart person. And if you're a technical job, electrician, labor, anything manual, you must not be as smart as me. You must be, because you're not as intelligent, that's why you did those jobs. And I think it's really coming to fruition that it's like, actually, that's not true at all. And in fact, a lot of those people are better off.
Well, especially because to own and operate your own business, you have to be way smarter than somebody who's just like, I'm clocking in. Like, I don't know. I think it's funny. I just went to the taping of Moses Storm's special that's coming out. It's called Trash White. It's coming out on HBO Max. I highly recommend it. And he's a comic. And his whole thing is about growing up poor and the lessons learned and things like that. And I won't ruin it. But one of the things he said, he was like, the biggest misconception is that poor people are stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, and obviously he breaks it down as much more intelligent than.
Dude, I know a ton of dumb rich people.
I know more dumb rich people than I know dumb poor people.
Yeah.
I mean, because also,
Well, the older you get, the more you really start to realize that, like, if you have the deck stacked in your favor, it's not that hard to, now as long like just do like the basic normal correct things, and if you have everything stacked in your favor, it's really not that hard to just move up, the rankings of things. That's why Succession is such a great show, which we did not see last night. We're behind, but
oh yeah, we can watch that tonight.
but the people on that show, they're like some of the most powerful people in the country, but they're not brilliant.
No.
I mean, I guess you could argue that like the main character, Logan Roy, is like he's probably a pretty sharp businessman and ruthless, but his children certainly aren't brilliant. But they run the country in the media space, at least part of it.
Well, that's what I was going to say about corporate, which is I'm surprised that the Democratic Party doesn't want to, and only for a strategic move, not to actually make changes.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
But I'm surprised that the Democratic Party isn't, in where they have their, hands in the pot for corporate media, are not highlighting these what's the word? Class wars, essentially, because that's how they could break down the Republican Party. Because
that's what it was. So Reagan was like the union buster back in that's what it used to be. The Democrats used to be the party of the labor unions.
Right.
Kennedy was a big factor in that, and Reagan was like the anti-union guy. And then somehow, this is a very paraphrased, not totally accurate explanation, but
ooh, I'm excited for this.
My understanding is like under Clinton is when we did, I think it was NAFTA, I think was like the North American Federal something where we started, basically that was like the real birth of getting rid of all of these good labor jobs and sending them overseas.
Sure.
And basically being like, but you're going to have free, like really cheap stuff from other countries.
Sure.
And then fast forward a little later, we enter the war in Iraq, which was probably the worst thing our country's ever done this century. And, listen, I love me Dave Smith's podcast, maybe a little too much. But what I will say, what he really opened my eyes to that I never thought about, is he broke down how entering the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan was a 20-year domino effect that got us here, that drove up inflation, that caused the housing crisis, that caused people to lose jobs, to marriages to fall apart, that people leaning into these woke identity politics on a crazy level to find some source of meaning behind the chaos. And it just goes to show you that, like, everybody knows that was a mistake. Everybody knows now that it was a huge,
globalization is that what you're talking about?
No, it's elements of that. Us going into Iraq.
Oh, yes,
and Afghanistan.
yes, yeah.
Yet, like, this guy's really should be war criminals in a lot of ways, but like no one's been punished at all.
How can we count the ways of, the actual, me, don't even get me started where I'm like, oh, the way that we quote unquote call people criminals, where it's like, oh, they're dealing drugs. It's like, yeah, they're dealing drugs so they can survive because we've given them no other option.
Right.
And that you guys are fine making millions of dollars dealing out oxys and calling it medicine.
Yep.
Fuck off.
I know.
And
anyway.
I'm not saying that like one is okay and one isn't. I mean, certainly there's like, a balance, but yeah, the act of like criminality, but how we decide who are criminals and who are in positions of power is shocking.
So we could go on this even more, but I want to jump into a new segment. Or not a new segment, an old segment that I'm bringing back, okay? Because it's a great segment.
Okay.
So for those of you guys, oh, by the way, we got a hello from Joey Houston.
Hey.
What's up, Hoobie? All right, so you guys might remember a little while ago, we had a segment called LaForce, What's My Course? And effectively what it is Rachel LaForce takes your advice, or rather, she asks for your advice. No, I'm not saying this correctly. You guys...
Are you okay?
You guys ask her for advice, kind of like Dear Abby.
Okay.
All right? So I had two folks send in questions they want you answered.
Okay.
So if you guys have questions, you can send them to me. Send them to me. Don't send them to Rachel because it's more fun for her to see them on the show. You can email me, DM me, whatever. But these are two questions in a Dear Abby type way people need answered, okay?
Okay.
So they're going to say, LaForce, what's my course? Okay, so first one. Dear LaForce, now I know this one's going to resonate with you for real. Okay. I have always been too kind and polite. I give money I shouldn't, say yes to favors I don't want to do, and keep my mouth shut in situations where I should speak up. My best friend once told me I shouldn't say what she needed to hear, but only what she wanted to hear. I have been in therapy for 2 years now and finally reached the point where I'm learning to say no. I love that when I meet strangers, I can use my skills I'm learning to be more assertive. My friends and family are having a hard time with it. I broke up with the bestie because our relationship had not been only long, but also toxic and abusive. Other people I come in contact with now seem shocked if I say no or voice an opinion of my own. They then proceed to pressure me to change my mind, which makes me transform back into a mouse and comply so I won't seem rude. How can I get them to understand in a polite way that I'm changing for the better, which includes putting myself first, my needs and my decisions between yes and no first? LaForce, what's my course?
First of all, I don't know who this came from, but now I'm very interested to know.
I promise to keep it anonymous.
I think that's fair. I think it makes it more interesting. Honestly, I feel like everything you're doing is great. The thing that sticks out to me is how can I get them to understand? You can't. That's why, kind of changing and doing things differently sucks because one second. I got it. Passing off a baby. He did. So let me back up. We're gonna edit this part. Okay. I think this is so great. I would be interested to know who this is, but I know it's anonymous. But if you hear this course and you want to be like, dude, it was me, let me know. I would say everything you're doing is right.
And also, if it inspired you to send one in next week.
The thing I think is the most difficult is where you're like, how can I make them understand? And I also love that you said in a polite way, like you're still being polite. It's
Right.
like, how can I make them understand? But like in a polite way. Here's the deal. You can't. People who don't want to, this is not me saying it. Somebody smarter than me on the internet said this, which is like, how do we set boundaries with people?
Yeah.
And, it's the idea of like,
People really don't like it when you like if they think of you in a certain way, they're like in your circle or they have just in their mind you in a certain context. They really don't like it when you're like, hey, this isn't going to be the way that anymore.
Well, especially that's what I was going to say. If like the quote is something, and I'm going to misquote it, but it's like, the people who benefited from you not having boundaries are going to be the one who are really angry now that you have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we all have silent contracts with people. That, whatever, like the energetic connection that we've made with people, right? The easiest example is like maybe in your marriage or in your relationship. There's one person who does the trash. There's one person who does the laundry. There's one person who...
In ours, I do both.
This is true. There's one person who's the initiator. There's somebody else who's the follower. And a lot of times those are silent contracts that we've created with people. So if a silent contract that you created with somebody, especially somebody that you've been friends with or in a relationship for a long period of time, is you stay silent when your feelings are hurt, you stay silent, there are no boundaries.
Right.
One person leads no matter how toxic or abusive it is. It's really, really hard to say, hey, I'm no longer doing this with you. Like I'm doing something different. And so that's why I always say like healing isn't like cute and like, it's like
Healing is no joke.
Healing
That's
is
your
no
phrase.
joke, man. It's like it is the most difficult thing in the world. And the fact that we still kind of like procure like healing or spirituality or whatever, like it's still in this other category, which is fucking fun, like honestly hilarious to me. That I'm like the majority of like the day-to-day issues and problems we have as individuals, like would be solved over time if we would all be like, hey, this thing hurts. Maybe I should take a look at it. So what I want to say is keep doing what you're doing and find a support system of people who understand these new boundaries that you're setting. Find people who are energetically on your level now, because it makes it not easier, but every time you go back into those relationships or you're visiting with your family or whatever, you kind of feel those like, it's almost like a gate. It's an emotional gate that you keep hitting. So if you are creating new relationships with people that are energetically where you're at now, you'll be more aware of every time you hit those gates. And it doesn't get easier, but at least you're like, oh, this is the difference. And so over time, it's not about them understanding. It just becomes, and you'll be surprised how quickly people will bounce back. Like, I feel like I had so many fears around things with my family of like, they won't understand this or they won't get this. And it's like really over time, like even your parents like are really concerned with their own lives. Like you would be shocked. How, you know what I mean? Like
that's so true.
Eventually people are like, yeah, cool. I don't know. She's like into this thing. It's fine. Like people really will move on much faster than you give them credit for.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, we got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have spoken for so long.
No, well, no, you had a lot to say. And also, I keep these anonymous, but if you want us to mention who they're from, we're happy to shout you guys out. But these two are anonymous. But listen, you're giving great advice to the listeners. This one's a little bit more fun, and I think you'll be like, oh, I'm glad I don't have to deal with this anymore. Okay, dear LaForce. I'm a 30-year-old woman who very much wants to find someone to share my life and start a family with. The problem is I hate dating, at least the early stages. To me, first dates aren't exciting. They're just plain awkward and nerve-wracking. I've tried everything to change my outlook on dating, but I still go into every first date with the same enthusiasm as I'd have for a root canal. I truly want a partner in life, but I hate first dates so much. I Googled, is arranged marriage for me? Please, do you have any tips for how to have a more positive outlook on dating? LaForce, what's my course?
I think I know who this is, and it's hilarious. And also, Googled arranged marriage is a joke that should be on stage somewhere.
I mean, we got lucky. Because
But we got lucky after years of being dragged behind wagons in the name of love, okay?
Yeah. Well, I would only say for myself, I don't feel like anybody else duped me into getting dragged behind a wagon. I think
But I just mean you dated a lot of people where it was
too many.
Yeah, we're like, that's everybody's dating experience until it works.
You know, I'm thinking about it now with Jonah, like the first time he's really smitten with someone, you know. I've and also this is something I've really tried to make a point is, you know, I was about to say smitten with some girl, but he might not be. He might be smitten with some boy. So just whoever he's like smitten with, and then, you know, he's starting to be like a little irrational. It's like, you don't understand. Okay, you don't understand. It's like, dude, I'm your dad. Mom and I, you have no idea how much we understand. Okay. You know that's going to happen, right?
Oh, I know.
But I love them. It's like, no, you don't. I mean, you do for this window of your life, but
I know.
You're 18.
But I think that's why so much you just have to and I try to practice this more too of like just joining people where they're at.
Yeah.
You know, like when I have a friend, like for this thing where it's like, I'm never going to find anybody and I'm this and I'm that. And like the kind of and this is not making light because I understand like loneliness is very hard.
It's palpable.
I get it. But there's also something to like really learning to create a life that is so full.
Yeah.
That because I also think we really underestimate like platonic relationships and platonic love in our society. Like I would say like the love and friendship.
I value it more and more every day.
Dude, 100%. I mean, shout out to Adam Lombardi, like one of like my, longtime homies. And I feel like that like platonic love and relationship was like so full. Caitlin, I'm just now naming all of my friends from high school, but Chuck Lira, shout out Chuck, like all these people who have made my life so full.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because when you're in the waiting for whoever your romantic partner is, like, I think sometimes when we focus so much on the thing we don't have, we don't really take stock of all the things that we do.
Sure.
And then you kind of just get like red eyes where you're just like, I gotta find this person. I gotta find this person. And I think you should go in every first date with enthusiasm. You have to assume every time you go, it could be the one.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it's not, leave going on to the next. That's how I do it in stand-up. That's how you have to do it in auditions. You have to go into every single fucking room like, this is the day and I'm going to book the thing, which is delusional because you probably won't. But to stay in this game and to have fun, you have to have that mentality.
Totally.
You have to go into every show, into every sad room you do stand-up and be like, by the time I'm done, people are going to get on their feet being like, Rachel. Like you have to be delusional.
Has that ever happened?
No, of course not. It's a delusional thought.
So I have another segment I want to do, but real quick, I think we should change him before we jump. Can you do that? And I'll edit this out of the.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So for you live listeners, I got a little BTS bit for you. But Rach is going to change our son because he's really starting. I think he just will be less fussy with a clean diaper. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I do think it's interesting. Like, I definitely don't miss dating. I mean, there was a window of time when I used to really enjoy going on dates. And I don't know if it was as much as I loved getting to know somebody as it might, or maybe it was just like I have the chance to. I don't know a better way to phrase this, but like, ooh, maybe I'll have someone new smitten by me, which is like so kind of gross and weird to think about out loud. But first of all, obviously I love my wife very much. And, we don't go on a lot of dates these days because we have a baby. But shout out to the grandparents when they're in town. They can help us make that happen. But I know for me, I'm someone that once I'm just so much more productive and efficient with my time now that like going on dates and trying to find somebody isn't a thing in my life. And and it should be important to you if it is important to you. Like everybody wants companionship. Everybody wants, a partner and someone that they can joke with and feel safe with. But one of the perks I've found that when you do find that I guess I don't mean to like rub it into somebody who's single and can't find anybody, but I just feel like I'm able to be so much more efficient and productive
I just
now.
have to say, it's not that you can't find somebody, it's that you haven't found them yet. Stay hopeful.
Yes, correct. And also, I think if you feel like you're having shitty dates or you're meeting the wrong people, take a second and think about, is there a pattern that you have, or is there something that you're doing that's causing you to do that? Not that like you're at fault, but pause and think like, and I know it's hard to meet people in person. I know we were a rare exception of people that met in person that were able to make it work.
Well, yeah,
It's so funny you guys can't see, but Jonah's on this changing mat on the floor.
And he's covered in poop. I just want to say, no, I think it's true where it was like, oh, I can't find someone. It's like, dude, you kept dating emotionally unavailable men. Like, no wonder. I'm just saying, yeah, it's like more often than not, we do have patterns that we do over and over again. And we're like, I don't know, I'm so confused. And it's like, why? Writing's on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, if I'm looking back, every date I went on, within one, maybe two max dates, I knew for sure if I was like, oh, this could become something serious, or if I was like, oh, this is like fun and we'll fuck around. And there's nothing wrong with that when you're younger, as long as both people feel like they're in the same place on that agreement or deal or whatever you want to call it. But I think the danger comes that when you know deep down, oh, this isn't going anywhere, but you stay in it because you don't want to be alone, or you don't want to not be having sex, or even you just don't want to not have somebody around for the holidays, or like whatever that, I guess that goes under the umbrella of you don't want to be alone, which I understand that. I think the danger comes from when you do that too often. And also, I know a lot of people who don't like putting themselves, this is back to the fear thing. They don't want to be with somebody they actually really genuinely like because they're afraid of, it takes so much self-awareness and, ability to allow yourself to get crushed in a way. But that's with everything. I mean, now that we have, Jonah, having him really has opened our eyes, because it's like, I've never loved anything as much. I mean, even my love for you, it's different, but it's I can't really compare it to my love for Jonah. And, God, I would be so devastated if anything were to happen to him. So it's just like and I only say that to say that's kind of the deal with life sometimes. If you want something really good, you're going to have to be in a position where, you can't always protect it, right? Okay, so let's see. We've got some comments here. Stacy Krellin Papier. Oh, hi, Stacy. They're making way more money. So, yeah, sometimes when I see the comments, I don't always know, where in the conversation I don't always check them in a timely fashion, so I apologize about that. But thank you, Stacy, for chiming in. I think you were talking about the corporate media and things of that nature. Joey Houston wrote "fuck off" seriously. I don't know which part you're referring to, Joey, but I hope you were joking. It's kind of weird. Okay, so we're back at it with, I appreciate the comments. Sometimes I can't always check them in a timely fashion where I can work them in, but how's he doing?
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so you ready to roll to the next section? Do you want me to hold him?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. Well, we'll just do a couple Rachel Learns the News headlines, and we'll call it a day. But I picked a few that were my favorite, just because I think these will be really funny. Okay, so first, he's just, oh, Jonah. So this is a feel-good story. All right, here we go. I didn't want to do all like crazy. Like some of these are just really, really feel-good stories. Dads find creative way to combat violence at Louisiana high school. Okay, so you know me. I'm all about like dads being dads. Like if you're a dad, step up, take care of
They have
the kids.
shirts that say dad duty?
It literally, yeah. So here's a bunch of the guys.
Oh my
right?
gosh, how
bunch of men
charming.
they have shirts say dad duty. Okay, so looks like father does know best. A group of dads sprang into action following a major outbreak of violence at a Louisiana high school and brought peace back to the campus. Dads on duty, a squad of about 40 fathers from Southwood High School in Shreveport, thank you, are getting credit for calming things down after 23 students were arrested in just 3 days in a series of brawls at the school. Quote, "We're dads," group founder Michael Lafitte, I hope that's how you say your name, told the outlet. "We decided the best people who can take care of our kids are who? Are us." So effectively what it was is at this school, there was just an outbreak of young men. Some of them probably don't have father figures, just being really aggressive and violent. And these dads are there and they're patrolling there. And it's funny because they say that they'll do things. So they'll be at school in the morning, positive environment, hey, what's up? Good to see you, young man. But then also, if the kids are acting up, they'll go and embarrass them. They'll go and, kind of.
That is so funny because shame works, baby.
Yeah.
Shame works.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I think
so. It says here, Lafitte said, dads on duty relied on the combination of tough love and good old humiliation, which is for men, honestly, nothing will keep a boy and a grown man, but a young boy in line than being embarrassed in front of his friends.
That's so funny.
So I just think it's great, man. So shout out to dads on duty. We were talking about when you said the humiliation. They hate it referring to students. They're so embarrassed by it. But the school's been happy. And, I just think it's a great thing. And I would love to see so this is the dads are now thinking of taking their show on the road and are considering launching various chapters throughout the state.
So that's what I mean when going back earlier when I was talking about getting involved with different community things. So if they had a chapter in Los Angeles, that would be something I'd have them come to the Misfit Light and chat.
I would love that. I think that's such a great needed thing,
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more, but I wanted to start with a feel good one because, I know last week we did a lot of the ridiculous sex toy from. It was all right, but this is kind of relates back to our thing earlier about the dating. Okay. Tinder releases a new +1 feature for finding wedding dates.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took this long.
Oh my gosh. Because the person you want to take on a wedding date, very different than somebody that potentially you would be looking to. I think that's hilarious.
Like our friend Adam Lombardi, great wedding date.
Great wedding date.
I would love to take Adam as my +1 on a wedding date.
No, but think about that though. There are so many people where it's gosh, especially if you're, going to a wedding where, either you don't know a lot of people or whatever. And also a wedding, what a great first date.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
you would learn so much about somebody.
That's so fun. But it also is so contingent on what is the wedding to the person going, right? So if it's their college close friend, that's a way different wedding than a cousin that you kind of know.
Well, I'm thinking a cousin that you kind of know having a Tinder +1 is...
You bring the Tinder +1 to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think that's hilarious. I wonder also, how is the feature different?
I give you full permission to do this as Tracy. If you're just going as a platonic Tracy, you would crush. Y'all.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Imagine.
Listen, I'm looking for somebody to go on dates to weddings with me. You want to know why? Because my husband, boring. I need somebody who's going to get out there on the dance floor. They're not sitting there. One time we went to a wedding, he ate 6 pieces of cake.
That's so
Nobody
funny.
eats the cake.
Think about Tracy at a Jewish wedding in the chair getting.
Oh.
That's so funny.
Oh my God.
Right. So this is brilliant. Tinder partnered with wedding planning site Wedding Wire to launch +1. The Tinder add-on is the app's Explore page and lets users play interactive games instead of just chatting.
Brilliant.
Okay, so if anybody's done this, I would love to hear about it, And to our friend that's having trouble dating, maybe try this if you have any friends getting married,
Dude, wedding season? Just taking a bunch of different dudes from Tinder I think that's hilarious. Also, what a great docuseries to make on your own.
For sure.
And it's like, all right, so I've been struggling with dating. Wedding season's coming up. I always hate it. It's like always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I decided that this time I'm going to do something different. And each wedding, dude.
God, I would love to produce.
I'm full of ideas.
We should produce that show.
That is.
We could cast that. We need fundraising.
Like,
we have the money. Yeah.
What I'm saying is give me your money. I will
Okay.
make funny things. Okay.
Okay, this one is hilarious. All right.
Oh, no.
Georgia man got COVID relief loan and spent $50,000 of it on a Pokemon card, federal authorities say. All right.
What?
So this guy from Macon, Georgia. I don't
Heard
know.
of it?
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So he got a COVID-19 relief loan to, theoretically for his business, but he used it to buy a Pokemon card. And yeah, apparently he was caught by federal. I mean, listen, I would prefer that the feds catch like corporate theft, but still, I mean, I don't feel bad for this guy. Also, I mean, how badly did you need the Pokemon card? And I'm shocked that Pokemon cards are still valuable.
Well, what would be the return on that card? If it was $57K to purchase it, how much could you possibly sell it for and then make profit?
Well, let's see here. So it says, by the way, so he lied about the number of employees he has for his business, yada yada.
Shocker.
You get up to 20 years in federal prison, $250,000 in fines.
Could you imagine though? What are you in for?
I know, that's what I was thinking, right?
It's like, I bought a Pokemon card.
I mean, that's
Dude, that guy is not making friends in prison. You feel me?
God, that would be so. That's like out of Arrested Development or something.
I mean,
right?
that is
like Will Arnett in prison. Did you watch that show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
It says here, so the guy could not be reached for comment on Friday. His defense attorneys representing him declined to give any comment officially. And then this just talks about like the relief bill. So it doesn't say a lot about why he bought the Pokemon card, but I mean, I don't feel bad for you. If you do something stupid as a crime, I don't. And that clearly,
Just also the audacity,
right?
And the confidence.
I know. Sometimes I feel bad for criminals if it's like, oh, he got caught up in a bad situation. But this was like, no, you're an idiot, dude.
Yeah, you didn't like lie on a relief loan to get money to like save your family's home.
Right.
You did it to buy a Pokemon card.
Yeah. Okay. One more hilarious criminal one, and then a feel-good one, and then we'll wrap it up. Seattle robbery suspect pleads for his gun back after victim disarms him. So, did you follow it?
Yeah, so he tried to hold somebody up and they got his gun and then he was like, please, this is my livelihood.
Yeah, literally. Okay. So Seattle police arrested a man for robbery on Tuesday after he pulled a gun on a man who disarmed him and took the weapon, leading the suspect to try to barter for his firearm. So it says that the manager of a convenience store saw this guy with about $200 in merchandise. He walked out of the store without paying. The manager followed the suspect, confronted him. The guy went to grab a gun out of his waist belt. The manager grabbed the pistol back, and then the dude was like, no, oh my God, I'll give you the stolen. He tried to plead. He said, I'll return the stolen items. Just give me my gun back. And then the guy was like, I'm calling the police. And the dude took off running, and then the police caught him. But think about how, listen, man, I know some people, they get caught up in a bad situation, whatever, but you're a freaking moron. Like, you lost the gun. Take it. That should have been a sign from the universe. Hey, this was your warning. Clean your act up.
I mean, I have a feeling that guy is not really glued into the universe. If that's, I don't think he was like, I heard it, but yeah, that's wild.
Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah. And then last one. This is adorable. This is like, I feel like you could get caught up in this situation and be like, babe, we got to do this. Okay.
Oh, no.
It's taking a second to load here. Give me a second.
Oh, no. Also,
Our son has finally passed out.
he is out.
Couple adopts abandoned dog after noticing she was chasing their car.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just so adorable. All right. A couple traveling through the Spanish mountainside say they noticed a small dog chasing behind their car. When the dog refused to give up, the couple realized something was wrong. We thought it was just a game. We soon realized something wasn't right because she was running fast and would not stop. So we started questioning, what's the dog doing here in the middle of absolutely nowhere? So then anyway, the dog kept following them. They started going slower and slower, and they realized that the dog didn't have any markings. They took it to a shelter. There wasn't a microchip. They put ads out, and they just decided nobody claimed the dog. So,
It's ours.
Yeah. Which,
Aw.
that is cute if it's a dog, but if it's like, the dude just wouldn't go away, so I married him. I mean, that's like,
When it's just like a dude following you. Yeah. Insert joke here. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, that's our news for the week.
Wow, not a lot going on in the news, huh?
I mean, there is, but I just figured last week it was like great, like, oh, this is crazy. But now I wanted to do more that was like a combination of feel good and silly stories.
I
So,
get it. Kind of a low week. I'm okay with that. It's raining outside. We both have sweatshirts on.
yeah.
Like a slow start to the week. I'm okay with that.
See, I was right. We changed him, and he passed out.
I
You know?
mean, if you can kind of see him. Yeah, he looks like.
Yeah.
Well, because Anyway,
well, that's it. We're pretty much just over an hour.
We did it.
So, anything else you want to leave the listeners with this week?
no, I feel like we did it. Yeah.
So, guys, keep sending in for LaForce What's My Course. That's sort of a little tease into what the Rachel LaForce Show is, because you kind of do a lot of that in your Instagram about, just good life advice.
Yeah, I would like to think so. I hope I'm self-aware enough to give life advice. I hope that because I'm also like, I don't know, if it works for you, great. If not, then, don't. I don't know. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. You were
Well,
looking at me like you were wanting something more. I didn't know.
No. I'm just now looking at our son. His eyes are open, but he's staring kind of like dead-eyed into the
Because he
ceiling.
just looks, you can see the top of his face here. He just like,
Right, Jonah? All right.
you're right, buddy. All right, guys, thank you so much again for listening and hanging with us as we're transitioning into the season 3, doing it with our human son. We're figuring it out. As always, I'm Rachel LaForce.
I'm Alex Gettlin.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.